The fluorescent lights hummed their familiar tune in the pediatric wing of St. Mary's Hospital. Sarah Martinez adjusted her worn scrubs and checked her watch. Another 12-hour night shift was beginning, and her feet already ached from the double shift she'd pulled the day before. At 28, Sarah had been working as a pediatric nurse for 6 years, but the financial struggles never seemed to end. Her own daughter Emma, just 4 years old, was asleep at her neighbor's apartment again. Sarah's mother had promised to help with childcare when Emma was born, but cancer had other plans. Now it was just Sarah, working every shift she could get, trying to make ends meet in a city where rent consumed half her paycheck. "Sarah, we've got a new admission coming in," called Dr. Rebecca Chen from behind the nurse's station. Dr. Chen was barely 35, but carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who had seen too much too young. "Baby boy, 3 months old. Parents are, well, they're very young. First-time parents. The father works construction. Mother's still in high school." Sarah nodded, gathering the admission paperwork. She had learned not to judge the families who came through these doors. Everyone was fighting battles she couldn't see. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, and Sarah watched as a young couple emerged. The boy couldn't have been more than 19, wearing paint-stained work boots and a flannel shirt that had seen better days. The girl looked even younger, maybe 17, clutching a baby wrapped in a thin hospital blanket. Her eyes were red from crying. "Are you here for the admission?" Sarah asked gently, approaching them. "Yes, ma'am," the boy said, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm Marcus Rodriguez, and this is my girlfriend Jessica. This is our son Daniel." His hands shook as he spoke. Jessica looked up at Sarah with desperate eyes. "Something's wrong with him. He won't stop crying, and he feels so hot. We don't have insurance, and we already owe the emergency room money from when he was born, but we didn't know where else to go." Sarah's heart clenched. She had heard this story too many times. Young parents, struggling financially, afraid to seek medical help because of the cost. "You did the right thing bringing him here," she said softly. "Let's get little Daniel taken care of." As they walked toward the pediatric unit, Sarah noticed Marcus limping slightly. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Just a work injury," he replied quickly. "Nothing serious. I can't afford to miss work right now." Dr. Chen examined baby Daniel with practiced efficiency. His temperature was dangerously high, and his breathing was labored. "We need to run some tests," she told the young parents. "Sarah, we'll get you set up in room 314. We'll know more in a few hours." Over the next few hours, Sarah found herself drawn to the young family. Jessica sat beside Daniel's crib, afraid to leave even for a moment. Marcus paced the small room, occasionally stepping out to take hushed phone calls. Sarah could hear fragments of his conversations, explanations to his supervisor about needing time off, discussions with Jessica's mother about who would watch the baby if both parents had to work. "You should try to get some rest," Sarah told Jessica during one of her routine checks. "Daniel's stable right now, and you need your strength." "I can't sleep," Jessica whispered. "What if something happens while I'm asleep? What if he stops breathing?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm supposed to know how to take care of him, but I feel so lost. My mom had me when she was my age, and she always said she figured it out as she went along. But I don't feel like I'm figuring anything out." Sarah sat down beside her. "Being a parent is the hardest job in the world, and you're doing it under incredibly difficult circumstances. The fact that you brought him here when you knew you couldn't afford it shows how much you love him." Marcus wanted to wait, Jessica admitted. He was afraid of the bills. But Daniel just kept getting sicker, and I couldn't wait anymore. Marcus finally agreed, but I know he's scared about how we'll pay for this. Around midnight, Sarah was updating Daniel's chart when she overheard a conversation between Marcus and someone on the phone. He was standing in the hallway outside the room, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. I know I promised I'd never ask again, but this is about my son. He was saying, he's really sick, and the bills are going to be thousands of dollars. I'll pay you back every penny. I swear. I'll work weekends, overtime, whatever it takes. There was a long pause, and Sarah could see Marcus's shoulders slump in defeat. I understand, he said finally. I know I messed up before. I know you bailed me out of trouble in high school. And I know I never paid you back for that car repair. You don't owe me anything. Sarah pretended to be absorbed in her paperwork as Marcus returned to the room, but she could see the weight of desperation in his posture. At 2 a.m., Dr. Chen delivered the diagnosis. Daniel had a severe case of pneumonia that required immediate intensive treatment. We need to transfer him to the NICU, she explained. He'll need specialized care and monitoring for at least a week, possibly longer. Jessica broke down completely. Marcus wrapped his arms around her, but Sarah could see him struggling to hold himself together. Doctor, Marcus said quietly, can you give us an estimate of what this might cost? We need to know what we're looking at. Dr. Chen's expression softened. I'm not the billing department, but intensive care for a week could easily run into tens of thousands of dollars. I know that's overwhelming, but right now we need to focus on getting Daniel better. After Dr. Chen left, Marcus stepped out into the hallway again. Sarah followed him, pretending to check on other patients. Jessica, Marcus was saying into his phone, I need you to call your sister. Ask her if she can lend us anything. I know it's late, but his voice broke. I don't know what else to do. Sarah's heart ached for them. She thought about Emma, sleeping safely at the neighbor's house, and how different her life might have been if she had faced these struggles at 17, instead of 22. At least when Emma was born, Sarah had her nursing degree and a steady job. These kids had nothing but love for their baby and determination to save him. The next few days blurred together. Daniel's condition stabilized, but remained serious. Sarah worked extra shifts, partly because the hospital was short-staffed, but mainly because she felt drawn to help this young family navigate the most terrifying experience of their lives. She noticed small things. Marcus never bought food from the hospital cafeteria. Instead, eating from a box of crackers he kept in his jacket pocket. Jessica's clothes were the same ones she had worn the day they arrived. Neither of them left the hospital for more than an hour at a time. On Thursday evening, Sarah was preparing medications when she overheard a conversation between Marcus and the hospital's financial counselor. The total estimate is $47,000, the counselor was saying. Without insurance, you'll be responsible for the full amount. We can set up a payment plan, but we'll need a significant down payment to proceed with extended treatment. How significant? Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. At minimum, $10,000. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah looked up to see Marcus staring at the floor, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. I'll find a way, he said finally. I don't know how, but I'll find a way. That night, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the young family. She thought about her own struggles as a single mother, about the time she had chosen between groceries and Emma's doctor visits, about the nights she had lain awake wondering how she would pay rent, but she had always managed to get by. These kids were facing something entirely different. She was checking on Daniel around 3 a.m. when she found Jessica crying silently beside his crib. "I keep thinking this is all my fault," Jessica whispered when she saw Sarah. "If I had been a better mother, if I had noticed he was getting sick sooner, if I had known what to do." "Jessica, listen to me," Sarah said firmly. "You are not responsible for Daniel getting pneumonia. Babies get sick sometimes, even with the best care. What matters is that you brought him here when he needed help. But we can't afford to help him," Jessica said through her tears. "Marcus is talking about dropping out of his apprenticeship program to get a second job. But that means giving up his chance at a real career. And I was supposed to finish high school this year. But how can I do that now?" Sarah sat down beside her. "Can I tell you something?" she said quietly. "When my daughter Emma was born, I was a single mother working as a nurse's aide. I had just started nursing school, and I was barely making enough to pay for diapers and formula. There were nights when I didn't know how I was going to make it to the next paycheck." Jessica looked up at her with interest. "But you know what I learned?" Sarah continued. "Sometimes the most impossible situations force us to discover strength we didn't know we had. And sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places." The next morning, Sarah was surprised to see Dr. Chen waiting for her at the nurse's station. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about something," Dr. Chen said. "It's about the Rodriguez family." Sarah's heart skipped. "Is Daniel okay?" "Daniel's improving, actually. His fever broke last night, and his breathing is much better. But that's not what I wanted to discuss." Dr. Chen paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "I've been watching you with that family, and I can see how much you care about them. I also know you've been picking up extra shifts lately." Sarah nodded, unsure where this was leading. "The thing is," Dr. Chen continued, "I did some checking with the billing department. The Rodriguez family's account has been paid in full." Sarah stared at her. "What? How is that possible?" "That's what I was hoping you could tell me. The payment came in yesterday, but it was made anonymously. Someone paid their entire bill, all $47, with instructions that the family never be told who made the payment." Sarah's mind raced. "Do you think it was a family member? Maybe someone they hadn't asked yet?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "I don't think so. The payment was made through a cashier's check, but there was a note with it." She handed Sarah a piece of paper. Sarah read the note aloud. "Some people believe that kindness is weakness, but I have learned that kindness is the greatest strength of all. This family's love for their child reminds me of what matters most in life. Please ensure they never know who made this payment." "Sarah," Dr. Chen said quietly. "The note was written on St. Mary's Hospital stationery. Someone who works here made this payment." Sarah's hands trembled as she held the note. "But who would have that kind of money? I mean, most of us are just getting by ourselves. That's what makes it so remarkable," Dr. Chen said. "Someone who understands what it means to struggle chose to help anyway." Over the next 2 days, Sarah watched as Marcus and Jessica received the impossible news that their bill had been paid. She saw the disbelief, the tears of relief, the way they held each other and their recovering son as if they could hardly believe their luck. The financial counselor said it was an anonymous donor, Marcus told Sarah. "Someone who wanted to help but didn't want recognition. I can't imagine who would do something like that for strangers." "There are good people in the world," Sarah replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "People who understand that sometimes we all need help." On Saturday evening, Daniel was finally discharged. Sarah hugged Jessica goodbye and shook Marcus's hand. Watching as they walked toward the elevator with their healthy baby boy, Sarah, came a voice behind her. She turned to find Dr. Chen approaching, but she wasn't alone. Behind her was an elderly Man in an expensive suit, walking with a slight limp, Sarah Martinez, Dr. Chen said. "I'd like you to meet someone. This is William Rodriguez." Sarah's eyes widened. "Rodriguez?" The elderly man smiled warmly. "Marcus is my grandson," he said. "My son, Marcus's father, and I had a falling out many years ago. Pride is a terrible thing, Miss Martinez. It can keep families apart for decades." Sarah stared at him, pieces of a puzzle slowly falling into place. When Marcus was in high school, William continued, he got into some trouble. Nothing serious, just typical teenage mistakes. But he was too proud to ask me for help, and I was too stubborn to offer it without being asked. We haven't spoken in almost 10 years. But then how did you know about Daniel? Sarah asked. William's eyes grew misty. I've been keeping track of Marcus from a distance. I knew about Jessica, about the baby, about his construction job. When I heard Daniel was in the hospital, I realized that pride is a luxury I could no longer afford. Dr. Chen smiled. Mr. Rodriguez has been volunteering here at the hospital for 5 years. He helps with fundraising and sits with patients who don't have family nearby. That's how he knew to contact me when he heard about Daniel. I wanted to pay for Daniel's care directly. William said, but I knew Marcus would refuse if he thought it came from me. So I asked Dr. Chen to help me make the payment anonymously. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes. But why are you telling me this? Because William said, Dr. Chen told me about you, about how you've been working extra shifts to help pay your own bills, about how you're raising your daughter alone, about the kindness you showed my grandson and Jessica when they felt lost and afraid. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. I want you to have this. Sarah shook her head. I can't accept anything. I was just doing my job. No, William said firmly. You were doing much more than your job. You were showing my family the kind of compassion I should have shown them years ago. Please, take it. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $25, zero, and a note that read, for Emma's college fund, from a grandfather who understands that some things are more important than pride. Sarah looked up at William through her tears. I don't understand. Why would you do this for me? William's voice was gentle. Because you reminded me what it means to be family. Not just blood family, but human family. You took care of my grandson when I was too stubborn to do it myself. You showed them kindness when they needed it most. And because I've learned that the best way to honor a gift is to pass it forward. 3 months later, Sarah was finishing another night shift when she saw a familiar figure in the hospital lobby. Marcus was there with Jessica and Daniel, but they weren't there as patients. Marcus was wearing a clean shirt and carrying a toolbox. Sarah, Jessica called out, rushing over with Daniel in her arms. The baby had grown chubby and healthy, his eyes bright and alert. What are you doing here? Sarah asked, smiling at the sight of the thriving family. Marcus got hired as part of the hospital's maintenance crew, Jessica explained proudly. It's a union job with health insurance and everything. And I'm finishing high school through night classes. Marcus grinned. Turns out when you're not worried about medical bills, you can focus on building a real life. We even found a little apartment near here. Nothing fancy, but it's ours. And Jessica added with a mysterious smile, we have something for you. She handed Sarah a small wrapped package. Inside was a framed photo of Daniel, healthy and smiling, with a note that read, to the angel who saved our family. Thank you for showing us that kindness is never wasted. As Sarah watched them walk away, Marcus heading to his new job, Jessica taking Daniel to the hospital's daycare before her own classes, She thought about the chain of events that had brought them all together: a sick baby, a struggling young couple, an estranged grandfather, and a nurse working the night shift. None of them could have imagined how their lives would intertwine. That evening, Sarah picked up Emma from daycare and took her to the park. As her daughter played on the swings, Sarah thought about the college fund that would ensure Emma never had to worry about affording her education. She thought about William Rodriguez, who had learned that love was stronger than pride. She thought about Marcus and Jessica, who had discovered that sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures. "Mommy," Emma called from the swings, "push me higher." Sarah smiled and gave her daughter another push, watching her soar against the backdrop of the setting sun. She had learned something during those long night shifts at St. Mary's Hospital. Sometimes the most important job isn't the one listed on your paycheck. Sometimes it's simply being present when someone needs you most, showing kindness when it costs you something, and believing that tomorrow can be better than today. The night shift had indeed changed everything, not just for the Rodriguez family, but for everyone it touched. And in a small hospital in an American city, the quiet miracles of human compassion continued to unfold, one patient, one family, one act of kindness at a time.